right, here with the review for Superman, James Gunn's Superman. I apologize for getting this out so late, but things were happening in life and I just couldn't find the time to sit down and do the review the way I wanted to. I'll try not to make this long-winded. But like I said in my out-of-theater reaction, I enjoyed the movie. I liked the movie. I saw the movie twice so far. I plan on seeing it the third time. The first time I went by myself, and the second time I went with two friends. One thought it was meh, and the other one liked it probably just as much as me. I also talked to two other friends that had seen it. One said it sucked, and the other one said it was meh. And that kind of falls in line with the reviews that I've been seeing over different platforms, with the majority of the people liking it, and you have a few people that have said, it's okay, it's meh, and then you had the smallest amount of people saying it sucked. But the people saying it sucked seems to be the loudest people, and they want you to believe that everybody did not enjoy this movie, which is not the case. Let's start with the story. I thought the story was good. Was it the best story ever in a superhero movie? No. But I thought it was good, and I really didn't have any expectations for what the story would be going into this because the trailers really didn't give off too much. And kudos to the people putting the trailer together for keeping that concealed. I thought the story, for the most part, flowed well. I heard some people didn't like it. They felt it was disjointed. They felt it was sloppy. It was all over the place. They couldn't keep track of things. They couldn't keep up with it to make it all come together. I had no issue with that. I don't know. It didn't seem anything complex to me. Yes, it might jump around from one subplot to a different subplot, but they all come together appropriately and nothing felt disjointed to me. Everything felt fine. With that being said, I think the movie is too short, and that's a compliment to the movie. Now, originally, before the movie came out, and I heard that the length of the movie, the runtime was about 2 hours. I was hoping that was false information because I felt like for a new Superman movie, even though it's not an origin story, I thought 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes would suffice. And I thought 2 hours would probably be too short and I would be wanting more. And that's exactly how it felt. The movie moves along very quickly. You know, there's not a whole lot of time to breathe, and I was okay with that. But I think the movie could have definitely benefited from some breathing space in there, and maybe extending a couple of scenes that might have been too short to just add some more weight to it, or even add some more context. For example, the scene with Clark going back home with Ma and Pa Kent, I felt like that could have been a little bit longer. We could have spent some more time with Ma and Paul Kent. Another scene that probably would have benefited, or a sequence that would have benefited from a longer runtime, is, you know, that kaiju creature. Where did it come from? Where did Lex Luthor get it? All right, how did it grow in size overnight? What was it doing? How was it terrorizing? Well, they explained like it was in a coffee shop or something, terrorizing some businesses. But, you know, being able to see that, it kind of just cuts away to this big monster. You're like, wait, what? How'd it get big? Things like that to help flesh things out and answer a couple questions. Minor, but it would still be nice. I also felt like we could have had some extended scenes or maybe an extra scene of Superman and Lex Luthor interacting directly, especially at the end of the film, and I'll get into that later more, but that dialogue that Lex and Superman had, I felt like that could have been a little bit longer and there could have been more depth and weight added to it. I also feel like the higher execs, the head of Warner Brothers, may have told James Gunn to trim this down a bit. Now I have no proof of this, but that tends to happen a lot. But I thought WB would have learned their lesson when they were sticking their hands too much in the director's chili of a lot of these DCEU movies and ended up botching the movie and stripping out much needed context and scenes that would have added a lot to these films, but they wanted to cut the length for different reasons. They felt like it was unnecessary, or they wanted to fit it, get it to a certain runtime so they can have more showings in the theaters, and other reasons. But I definitely felt like there may have been some other scenes here that James Gunn shot, and he was forced to, parse things and cut things to meet the runtime standards that his bosses gave him. That's what I really feel like. I think there may be a director's cut somewhere out there. I didn't want the movie to end. I was sad when the movie ended. So giving us an extra 30 minutes for a 2-hour and 30-minute runtime would have been excellent and probably fully fleshed this movie out better. Now, I'm not saying it sucks. It moves along very quickly, like I said, but some extra scenes could have made a more complete movie and some extended scenes of some scenes that we were already presented. One thing I love is that Superman is in costume for most of the movie. We don't get a lot of Clark Kent outside of his Superman suit. And that would have been nice to see, maybe even some more interaction with him and his co-workers at work, at the Daily Planet, things like that. But with that being said, I also feel like we got to see Clark Kent even when he was in costume, when he was in uniform. So there are scenes where he's with people that knows he's Superman, and he can be Clark Kent around them, such as Lois Lane. And then there are scenes where he has to put on the Superman persona, more so, the superhero persona, and you don't get those other Clark Kent aspects that you would, if he was alone with people that knew him or completely, out of costume. So when people say they didn't get to see enough of Clark Kent, I felt like personality-wise, we definitely did, but visually, not. And you know what? I'm tired of watching superhero movies and these guys are barely in costume. So I prefer that. That's one reason I like The Batman, because we got to spend a lot of time with The Batman. I got to see him in costume. I love that. And I felt like this was very similar. We got to see more of Superman than the other guy. I'm cool with that. I appreciate that it wasn't an origin story. It's funny. When you give people an origin story, they're like, why do we keep doing this? Why? We already know this story. Stop retelling it. Just, get to the meat and potatoes. And then when you don't do an origin story, people are crying. I swear, you can't make everybody happy. But I'm happy, and I'm happy that they established this universe the way they did. Superheroes have been around for what? 300 years? Metahumans, right? And Superman has been Superman for 3 years. And he only just recently lost his first battle. I'm okay with that. That helps establish the universe and let you know exactly what you're getting into. This is only the initial movie, but so far, I like what I'm saying. This is a very fantastical world. There's kaiju. There's interdimensional beings showing up on the planet. There's flying dogs. There's Lex Luthor slave monkeys typing on social media super shit. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. Proton river, proton pool, whatever that was called, the proton stream, the pocket dimension. It's out there, and I am all for it. I like the idea about Superman's parents basically sending him to Earth to rule over Earth and procreate. That's very different. I was not expecting that at all. And as of right now, as for what we know, that video stands to be true, how the movie presented it to us. And I like the twist. I thought that was really cool. That caused a lot of turmoil and conflict internally for Superman. I thought that was neat. I was not expecting that at all. But I was watching John Campion not too long ago. He brought up a point. He said that if you look at the video, his parents did not have the symbol of the House of L, the S symbol, on their chest. So maybe we might find out later, years down the line, in a later movie, that the video was not real at all. That was actually General Zod, part of some kind of master plan. And he said you might find out in a Supergirl movie, or Supergirl might come down and she'll see the tape of his parents and she'll be like, Cal, that's not your parents. I grew up on Krypton. I know what your parents look like. Those are not your parents. That's General Zod. I was like, that would be a cool twist. Not saying that's going to happen, but it's interesting. I like the idea of the clone Superman. All right, so Ultraman historically is a alternate universe Superman, part of the, what are they called? The something syndicate, the god damn it, what are they named? Part of the crime syndicate. Don't quote me on that, but crime syndicate. These evil version of the Justice League that kind of is a dictator on their planet. So in his movie, he uses Ultraman, but he uses him as a Superman clone, which is actually what we've known to be Bizarro in the past, which is interesting. So you've basically used up, if you want to say, 2 Superman enemies: Clone Superman, typically what we know as Bizarro, and alternate universe Superman, Ultraman. Now, an interesting concept. I've heard other people say this, and I've thought of this as well. After Ultraman got sucked into the black hole, maybe he probably survives that, goes through whatever type of warping, type of effect it has on his body, being in this black hole for God knows how long, and then his face starts to morph and deform, and then he comes back as Bizarro. I think that would be excellent for a future movie. A lot of other people have been complaining about Superman getting his ass kicked throughout this whole movie, and I'm going to make a separate video about this, so I'm not going to stick to it very long, but everything needs context. Oh, Superman's wimp. Superman's weak. Superman's a punk. Superman's just getting his ass kicked. He's so vulnerable. I'm like, with context, did you watch the movie? Yeah, you're fighting a clone of yourself that Lex Luthor said was more powerful, but not only are you fighting a clone of yourself, this clone has the added benefit of being directed by Lex Luthor, who knows every one of your moves because he's been studying you for years and giving your more powerful clone directives on how to kick your ass live in battle. Besides the fact there were also segments where he was getting double teamed. So of course he would get his ass kicked. Anybody would get his ass kicked in that situation. And the minute they started destroying the cameras and Lex Luthor lost his ability to give commands, Superman started whipping his ass. But like I said, I'm going to address this in another video. Let's move on to characters. Superman was awesome. Corn Sweat was awesome. To me, he is Superman. He is already my favorite Superman over Henry Cavill. This feels more like Superman. I was smiling watching this movie. I was happy watching this movie. He had much more personality. He felt like Superman. He gives you the good energy, the good feeling, the happy butterflies in your stomach that you're supposed to get when you see somebody like Superman. He was charming. He was lighthearted. He was relatable. He was going through human conflicts just like we all do, because people are like, well, he shouldn't be, he shouldn't relate to us. He's an alien. He was raised on Earth. He was raised with humans. So naturally, he's going to develop behavioral patterns and cultural aspects like any human being would. Superman was fantastic. Corn Sweat nailed it. Lois Lane was exceptional. I don't know all these guys' names off heart. I think her last name is Brosnahan. She's the best Lois Lane by far. Old girl in Man of Steel, Amy, I could never connect with her. She was boring. She was dull. She did not feel as Lois Lane as this Lois Lane. She was excellent. Excellent. Pushing Superman's buttons. Very independent. And I love the fact that it didn't go with this whole Superman constantly saving Lois Lane thing. Like, that's so played out. And Gunn stayed away from that. And their chemistry together, Superman and Lois / Clark and Lois, exceptional. That scene in her apartment from beginning to end. People were complaining it's drawn out too long. No. I thought that was perfectly paced, at good length, and I felt the weight of that situation. That was an excellent scene. Great conflict. And later resolve. Loved it. Mr. Terrific. A lot of people will say Mr. Terrific stole the show, and I might not disagree. I think between him, there was some good acting. There was some good acting. Seriously, and great casting across the board. But Mr. Terrific was awesome. I didn't expect much from him going into this, but I don't know a whole lot about the character, but he sold me on Mr. Terrific and his fears and his banter and his seriousness and his soul brother vibe. I loved it. It wasn't cringy. It wasn't too much. It was the right amount. And his fight scene on the beach was epic. That part, he's like throwing those spheres around, put the force field around Lois, and that one ball is up like this. He catches it. The camera spins as he spins. Oh, that was epic. And he was throwing some haymakers out, laying people out. Excellent. Mr. Terrific, great. No issues. Guy Gardner was Guy Gardner. Looked like him, acted like him. And he had his moment. And a lot of these characters had their moments. A lot of them. And I look forward to seeing more Guy Gardner's Green Lantern. He had his own little mini story arc in there where he kind of came through at the end, went against his core values or his bylaws of a Green Lantern. Hawk Girl. She was the least interesting of the Justice Gang. I said everybody had a moment. Technically, she did too when she basically killed the Baravian, whatever that country's name is, Baravian leader or whatever, dropped him from the air because he's like, you won't kill me, you're not Superman. She's like, that's funny because yeah, I'm definitely not. Or you're like Superman. She's like, oh, I'm not Superman. Yep, you're dead. The movie would have been fine without her. She didn't really add anything at all. I felt the other characters added something. Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, they all added something. They had pivotal parts in the movie. She didn't. Anybody could have dropped him from the sky. And honestly, I got tired of hearing her screaming. Even, I ain't gonna lie, one of the cuts just seemed kind of goofy, where she was screaming and the camera kind of rotates around her as she's flying, and she's just screaming throughout this hallway, knocking people down. I'm like, She didn't bring the movie down by any means, but she didn't lift it up like some of the other characters did, and it would have been fine without her. But whatever. Metamorpho was awesome. I didn't know what to expect from him, but he had a very important role in the progress of the story, just like Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific did. And he was awesome. He's great acting. From the down moments to the high moments, they were all very good. Ma and Pa Kent are straight up hillbillies in this movie. They acted it out very well, but I felt like the script that they were given, it was kind of geared more towards the comedy end. I think they were trying to get laughs from people with how southern, how hillbilly-ish, if that's a word, Ma and Pa Kent was. Straight up hillbillies. Hills have eyes, hillbillies. Is that you, Clark? Yeah, I saw Clark down by the river. They were straight up hillbillies. With that being said, they still had their own little bit of charm to them, but they were definitely going on the extreme end of Southern country folk. I'll say that much. I'm not calling them stupid or anything like that. I'm just telling you that is the persona. And even with that being said, that scene that Clark shared with Paul Kent was very touching. It was very moving about parenting and raising a child. It was all excellent. Crypto. How can you not like Crypto? And a lot of people thought Crypto was going to take away from the movie. There's going to be too much about the dog, blah, 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 blah. Nope, Crypto was the perfect amount of Crypto. He had his moments. I liked them all. I like how they executed it. I like the idea of, Mr. Terrific spheres, him chasing it like it was a toy, which Mr. Terrific did not want. But Lex Luthor, his drone cameras, and Crypto was shutting those things down like they were toys. Go get it. I thought that was cool. I thought that was very clever. But yeah, Crypto was awesome. He had his moments. Bad dog. And I love how they executed Crypto's behavior, because the whole time I'm like, I hope they give an explanation as to why this dog is so shitty. Why this dog doesn't listen. Why is it such a bad dog? And it all made sense. Not only is it a foster dog, not only is it not Clark's dog, but Kara's dog, Supergirl. But when she lands at the end of the movie, at the ending, she's like, hey, where's my dog? Seeing how she interacts with the dog, seeing her lack of training and no boundaries, like Superman said, it all explains it. It explains it. I was like, yep. If this is how you trained your dog, it would be a piece of shit, and don't listen either. And I'm not saying it's a woman thing, but I will just say this. Women that I have dated that live by themselves, they pampered the dog. They didn't train the dogs, and they let the dog run the house. There was no obedience training whatsoever. There were no guidelines, there were no boundaries, there were no rules. And I was like, yeah, I've seen that from some females. Yep. Not surprised. And what do you know? We got a Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen was not killed off in the beginning of a super movie. Jimmy Olsen, a very important character in Superman lore. Zack Snyder decided to kill off in the first moments of the movie. Yeah, we actually got to see Jimmy Olsen. And guess what? He was great. He was awesome. loved his character, and loved how he was getting scoops through the woman to push the narrative and help aid Superman. And last but certainly not least, Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor. This is hands down the best live action Lex Luthor I have ever seen. Lex Luthor was vicious. Lex Luthor was cruel. He was criminal. He was diabolical. And he was obsessed with Superman. Make no mistake about it. He looks like Lex Luthor and he feels like Lex Luthor. Oh, that was an excellent Lex. That was. And my favorite Lex Luthor moment after they ran the Fortress of Solitude and stole the dog was when Superman busts in there looking for Krypto. Busts in there with all his strength and might. Takes Lex Luthor's desk. Flings it across the room. Lex doesn't even blink. Sipping his tea. Sipping his coffee. Whatever he had. Doesn't even blink. Superman on his face. Superpower bang. Lex ain't worried about that. Lex know he ain't doing nothing. Guess that's a double negative, right? Lex knows he isn't. Lex knows he is not doing anything. There we go. I was saying some double negatives. Lex knows that, so he wasn't even fazed. He was like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Dog? What dog? Oh, you mean a little ugly dog with a cape? I was like, yo, Lex Luthor is cold. Even when they were tearing up the Fortress of Solitude. I forget the chick's name. The one with the blades, whatever. Y'all told me before, I can't remember her name. And she's like swinging those blades around, shooting those blades around, chopping up the Superman robots, the servants. And one blade goes right by Lex Luthor's face. He doesn't even blink. He just keeps walking. I was like, oh, that boy cold. And then that scene where he shoots the guy in the head. I'm like, I was not expecting that. And he didn't even, cold blood. They didn't show blood because it probably would have needed a rated R slap on it if they would have showed blood bursting out of his head after getting shot in it. But I was like, oh my God, I was definitely not expecting that. And he was ready to go get more people to play Russian roulette with. Lex Luthor, people. And he was obsessed with Superman, obviously. Been studying him for years, has like thousands of his moves memorized, ready to take him down. Excellent. One thing people were concerned about before the movie came out was that there were too many characters. You can't balance this. And I'm like, we're talking about James Gunn. We've seen him bring in too many characters for Guardians of the Galaxy. And guess what? He delivered. We seen it in the Suicide Squad. Guess what? He delivered. We seen it in Creature Commandos. Guess what? He delivered. James Gunn knows how to handle multiple characters. Having too many characters in the movie was not a problem for this film. James Gunn delivered yet again. And you got some people that believe just because there are other superheroes in a movie that they deserve more screen time, and those guys weren't given enough story, therefore there are too many characters. The story isn't about them. Because the minute you start putting more emphasis on them, then those very same people are going to say, well, this should have been focused around Superman. It's those kinds of people that you're never going to make happy, and they're going to find ways to poke holes. No, those characters were given the appropriate amount of time and character development and story arc that they needed to aid Superman and make sense in this movie. They were there primarily to show you that we have an established universe with superheroes already in there, people that have been superheroing longer than Superman in the world, and Superman has relationships with them, has interacted with them, will continue to interact with them, and this is a shared universe. And he absolutely delivered on that. That was the main purpose of these characters, these other superhero beings being there, and they delivered on it. And lo and behold, 3 of them actually got good story arcs in the time they were given without overstaying their stay. So no, you're wrong. James Gunn delivered that perfectly. Let's move into cinematography. I thought the cinematography was good. Was it as good as Man of Steel? Hell no. And Zack Snyder is a visionary person. I haven't seen many people that can do cinematography like Zack Snyder. Not many. And action sequences like Zack Snyder. So it was okay. Wasn't anything epic. The best shot was after Superman saves that woman that's about to get crushed by the building, and he keeps the building from collapsing on her, and then eventually the building falls down, and then there's dust everywhere in the sky, dust everywhere, and then Superman rises from the ash and the dust. That was epic. That was, in my opinion, the most beautifully shot scene. That was like Zack Snyder-esque. But other than that, the cinematography was good. Nothing great, but yeah, serviceable. I thought the special effects were good. Nothing groundbreaking, but they weren't bad. Not as bad as some of the Zack Snyder fans and Snyder cult would lead you to believe. Like, they would lead you to believe that this movie absolutely sucks because they were programmed to say that, regardless if they like it deep down inside or not. But the special effects were good. I never felt like anything was out of bounds. I never felt like anything just looked so unbelievable, despite it being a fantastical movie. Like, oh, that CGI sucks. I never got that feeling. Solid CGI. And the flying scenes. Love the feeling of flying with this Superman. I feel it. I feel the power when he's flying. I feel the speed. You can see the wind having the effect on his cape and on his hair. And some, I guess sometimes his skin reacting to it. Like, and the sound effects. Like, I felt like I was flying with Superman. This has got to be probably the best flying scenes with Superman. Even better than Man of Steel. He nailed that. He nailed the flying aspect. I just wanted to keep seeing Superman fly. Fly. The action sequences were good. But like I said, were they as good as Man of Steel's? No. Zack Snyder is a mastermind at putting together comic book movie Dragon Ball Z level fight sequences. That, you look at Batman vs Superman, the warehouse scene, all that stuff. Even his choreography crew was on board with the original Wonder Woman. That's why that action was so peak up until the final battle. But other than that, those action sequences were excellent. And you wonder why they were absent in Wonder Woman 2. Well, somebody wasn't there helping. But with that being said, not as good as Man of Steel, but they were good. They were good. I think my favorite action sequence was when they were out on was it the baseball field? Superman getting double teamed by Ultraman, and I can't remember. The Machine, what's her name? The Machine? I forgot her name. Whatever, the chick with the blades, and Superman has one in one hand and one in the other, and starts spinning them around, arms extended, and slamming them into the soccer field while he's rotating. I'm like, ooh, that is brutal. That is brutal. That's brutal. Crypto had his good moments fighting as well. The Superman Ultraman fight scenes were good. Superman vs. the Kaiju was good. I would have liked that to be a little bit longer, to be honest with you. And the Justice Gang's fight sequences were good. Especially Mr. Terrific, like I said, on that beach scene. I already spoke on it, but that was excellent. And then Superman fighting the, what were they called? Raptors? Don't quote me on that. Lex Luthor's henchmen. When Superman went rotational heat vision on them fools, I'm like, damn! I wanted that action sequence to go on longer. See, this is what I'm saying. Some sequences, some action scenes would have benefited from being extended. That's one of them. I wanted that fight to go on much longer, where Superman was fighting like 40 of those guys. The comedy. So this was something a lot of people were worried about, that this Superman would be a straight up slapstick comedy. It is not. It is not. Okay? People were trying to compare this to Shazam. People were trying to compare this to Thor: Love and Thunder. Absolutely not. That is a stretch. It's a lighthearted movie. There's definitely some comedy in it. There's parts in there to make people laugh, to make people smile, to give them warmth and good feeling, yes. But overall, I felt like most of it did not interfere with moments in the movie that should be taken more seriously, except one. There was only one I had an issue with. The final scene where Superman and Lex Luthor are talking, it was basically a reincarnation of the Loki and Hulk moment, where Loki's yapping, Hulk pops up and just starts thrashing him. That literally happens. Lex Luthor's yapping, Crypto pulls up and starts thrashing him around the office. Listen, I told you, I'm honest, I'm a fair person. I really like the movie, and I've been defending it, but that was one scene where I felt like comedy took away from a very serious and weighted moment between Lex Luthor and Superman. I felt like that should not have been in the movie. It was played for laughs. Crypto pulling up during his speech and throwing around Superman. Crypto, stop, come on, down boy, put him down, boy. That was a moment. That was one of the things people were worried about. They thought it would be throughout the whole movie, but I felt like it was only in that scene where he let the comedy take away from the weight of a very serious moment. If you wanted Crypto to get his get back from being effed up and kidnapped and tested on, there could have been other ways to do that, but I honestly did not like that. That was probably the only thing I did not like in that movie. The idea of having the monkey army typing away on social media, being social media trolls, it was unnecessary. There could have been a million more logical ways to go about that. It's Lex Luthor. He can literally create a program to do these things autonomously. So having 100, 200 monkeys doing it just didn't make any sense. I felt that was played for laughs, but it wasn't a major plot of the movie. It was very minor, so I can look past that. But it was like, that was probably unnecessary. But other than that, I thought the comedy, the lightheartedness was fine in the movie and hit where it was supposed to hit and didn't linger on too long and really didn't take away from very important moments of the movie that shouldn't have been played for laughs. And the soundtrack, let's get to the music. The music was fine. I had no issue with it. It's James Gunn. I kind of expected him to put in some radical music and they're kind of like what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy and some Superman tones and things like that. Do I think the music was trash like some Zack Snyder people are saying? No. Is it as good as Man of Steel soundtrack? Absolutely not. I listen to Flight every time at the gym, and I listen to what's it called? Where Will You Be When There's No More Heroes, or something like that. Don't quote me on that. Where's the World When There's No More Heroes? Something like that. Man of Steel soundtrack was peak. Batman vs Superman, peak. Great soundtrack. Was it as good as that? No, but it was good. It wasn't trash. The music then, I wasn't like, what is this music? Why this music? Music is disgusting. I never thought that throughout the entire movie. And I'm really looking forward to this Supergirl movie now. I really didn't have much to say about it before this, but after Supergirl landing in the Fortress of Solitude and seeing her personality and, learning a little bit about Supergirl after watching that, because I don't know a whole lot about her outside of a couple animated movies I've seen her on. Didn't watch the TV series. I was like, all right, this seems like a fun character. This seems like a conflicted and interesting character that I'm down, and I'm actually excited for the Supergirl movie now. I like this better than any superhero movie I've seen this year thus far. And this is probably the best movie I've seen this year in theaters so far. Overall, I give this movie an 8 out of 10. I think that's fair. I enjoyed it. Was it great? No. Was it good? Yep. Like I said, I've seen it twice, and I'm going to go see it again. So I'm about to catch a flight to the Philippines here soon. I plan on going to see it in the Philippines if I have time. Just a short 2 hours out of my day. Nothing more, nothing less. I hope you go watch the movie too. If you haven't, go make your own decision about it. Don't listen to what a lot of people are telling you. Either way, just go make your own call. But I can tell you it's definitely not as bad as some people think it is if you're looking at it objectively and understanding the context. Saying you hate this movie because Superman gets his ass kicked tells me that you weren't paying attention or you didn't watch the movie, because you would understand why. Lex Luthor was one step ahead of Superman every step of the way until the end. That's why, but that fits to Lex Luthor's character. So everything made sense. But anyway, I'm going to stop it here. I got a flight to catch, and the people mowing my backyard, the noise is too loud and sure it's interfering with the video. So I'm going to cut it here. I'm going to put out a couple more videos next week addressing some of the narratives with this movie and some of the things people are saying negatively about it, but not giving you the context to understand why it is, and calling people out, some other content creators out here being hypocrites. And I'm talking about Snyder Bros. So I can't wait to get back and put content out on that. Appreciate you guys. Like I said, if you haven't yet, go watch the movie. Let me know what you think about it, and I really hope you enjoy it. But that's all I got to say about it. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and I'll catch you on the next one. We out, baby.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.